We begin with the fact that on that night in Detroit, a lot of people thought Gordie Howe was going to die. Late in the playoff opener, he missed a check on Teeter Kennedy of the Maple Leafs and went crashing headfirst into the boards of the Olympia in Detroit. Or Kennedy hit him in the head with the butt end of his stick and he went crashing into the boards. There was no consensus, and Howe did not move. It took 90 minutes just to drill the hole in his skull to drain the fluid from the brain hemorrhage. If he lived, it was assumed, it would be a long time before he talked or walked or maybe, just maybe, played hockey again. Yeah, not exactly. 26 days later, he was standing at center ice in street clothes, waving to the crowd after the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup. 30 years later, he was waving to crowds in uniform as he played his last season in the NHL just after his 52nd birthday. Gordie Howe's injury, the near-death experience, happened on March 28, 1950. In the following 17 seasons and playoffs alone, he scored 635 goals in an era of 6 teams, meaning every time he stepped on the ice, he was facing one of the 5 best, or to be generous, one of the 10 best goalies in the world. Just in those next 17 seasons, greatest player in hockey history, as an all-around athlete in any sport, probably exceeded by Babe Ruth, maybe 1 or 2 others. Plus, there were the fights and the body checks that were, as one veteran told me, quote, both. Both? I asked. Both. They hurt when he hit you, then you felt better, then later you hurt again. Both. 635 goals between near death and NHL expansion, and the body checks and the fights, and maybe most, the way he used that brain they thought had been damaged. His son Mark says after initial improvement, Gordie Howe had another stroke last week and has taken a turn for the worse, and the family is now focused on making him comfortable and pain-free. Not to burden them further, but I wish they could do that for the rest of us. I met Gordie Howe when I was 10 years old, and I met him again when I was 37. And each time I started out terrified, and I ended up laughing. And the last time I also ended up amazed by that brain. I've told the story 1,000 times and shown the SportsCenter commercial nearly that many. It's vital to the story, and anyway, Mike Keenan once said the commercial was perfect vengeance for everybody in hockey who didn't like me. So it works on a lot of levels. So one more time.
It's cool having the athletes hang out here at SportsCenter. Even the old-timers show up, which can be interesting.
In the old days, we had respect for some. Yeah, Bobby Hall hit me one time right here. Hey, you're not listening. They had the advantage because they can put you in a corner here like this. You're in there digging in real tight, you do this, and you get their attention. If you don't like him again, it's up here. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? The follow-through's like this. When the puck dropped, I hit him here. It was a respectful game when we played it. See, Mommy? Mommy? Okay.
That only took 30 minutes to shoot, during which I discovered that Gordie Howe was a fantastic actor. Every cross-check, every elbow, every touch, he told me just to hold still, that he knew exactly by how much he should miss and still make it look convincing. The stick under my chin, you could have slipped a piece of chewing gum between it and my flesh. He came in from this side at one point and made it look like he was putting his full weight on me, and I swear his jersey never even made contact with me. Half an hour after he left, of course, I still had these shooting pains up and down my arms, and the realization that I'd just gotten my butt kicked by a 68-year-old man who wasn't really trying. As his contemporary had said, quote, both. But as I think of Gordie Howe and his family's efforts to keep him comfortable and pain-free, I think about the kids that he met. You've seen this before. This is from 1972. The prepubescent boy on the right is Wayne Gretzky, age 12. 2 decades later, as Gretzky prepared to break Howe's record for goals, Howe talked about coming out of retirement to raise the bar. He was 61. He actually did play a minor league game later, 2 seasons before Gretzky retired. Obviously, you won't remember this, I told him while they were moving the cameras and the lights around my desk that day, but I met you when I was a kid. A Ford event, maybe the auto show in New York? And Gordie Howe looked away for a second. Oh yeah, the auto show, 1969. With Byron Nelson and Jesse Owens. Kind of a snowy night. I'm surprised you made it. Now I was the one looking blankly. Howe remembered everything. He recounted the travel conditions, had to take the train from Boston. He'd scored against Jerry Cheevers in Boston, a low shot. No, sorry, he said it was Johnston, Eddie Johnson. And he was sure he'd make it to New York, wasn't sure. There was so much snow. How did my dad and I get there? And wasn't that the year of the real blizzard, when it had looked like Emil Francis was going to have to play goal because Eddie Jackman was stuck out on Long Island, and Byron Nelson gave him some great golf tips during that auto show. And what a gentleman Jesse Owens was. And did he do the wrist thing with me? The wrist thing. Suddenly I saw myself, age 10, terrified, croaking out my name so Hal could sign a postcard to me. and him handing it back to me high up over my head, and I reached up and there was a blur in the postcard and the hand was somehow at my waist. I reached down, Gordie Howe went back up. I stopped being terrified, I laughed, he laughed, and I also realized how he scored all those goals. As we send prayers and thoughts to Gordie Howe and his family, it would be poetic if I lamented that postcard he signed for me in 1969, if I wondered where it was and used it as some kind of metaphor for life and inevitability and nonsense. I know exactly where it is. That's it. It's on my desk in my office at home, near another picture. In friendship, he wrote that day. Thank you, Gordie Howe. Godspeed, Gordie Howe.